This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent, Season 11, Episode 21, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington across social media. And I'm Rick Snyder.
And I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing all things Washington sports and life as part of the mighty Rick Snyder's empire. Hey, just finished the 4th anniversary of Rick Snyder's Washington. 22 million views. You'd think we'd be rich by now.
You would think.
Yeah.
But you're still in the garage.
I'm just 4 years older and deeper in debt. But other than that, thanks to everybody for watching. I wish you'd kick in that thanks dollar button below us on YouTube, but whatever. All right, so we're only doing one show this week, given that it's Monday and Thursday. They're playing Philadelphia. So the later show, we always pick the game first, and then we'll get back to things. So I'm going to go Eagles 30, Washington 24.
Now, to be fair, we're recording on Tuesday, and we haven't got word. After Sunday's performance, it's very evident that they need Marshawn Lattimore to play this game. If not, AJ Brown will probably go for over 100. I don't know, Rick. Them boys were pissed after that loss on Sunday, and I know we'll get into it. I'm going to go ahead and go Commanders 31, Eagles 24.
All right, there you go. So back to the Pittsburgh loss. I always do the picks first, for those you're wondering, because most of you quit after a few minutes. So at least you see the actual pick. And last week I picked the Steelers. Everybody hated on me. What do you want me to do? It's in Skins Tangibles with Larry. You can go watch the old shows for that. All right, so basically, at one point I thought, wow, they're up by 10 against the Steelers. And I thought, they need more points. This other team's coming back. They figured, this defense is getting too tired, and the other team is starting to make some move. I thought Russell Wilson had no arm left. He managed to make that one throw, but so many others he didn't. They need to go to Justin Fields with that team because he's not the future. If Fields could be, but the Steelers, good defense. It was a good, just like the Giants week before. It was a good smash mouth game. This time, the Steelers were left standing winning, and they're a good team, and there's no disgrace losing this. But you would have wished that, one, they got screwed on the 4th down call, and two, that they could have held a game. When you're up by 10, you should win a game.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I agree with you on that point. Aside from the Ertz 4th down, not a first down that should have been a first down. This team, there was too many mistakes this game to get out of their own way. There were so many dropped passes, honestly, Rick. The one that I think it was Noah Brown in the end zone dropped a surefire touchdown. I mean, even Terry had a drop or two. I mean, the offense wasn't clicking like it has the previous games, and I think that was maybe it got in their heads. I don't know, but the guys were dropping balls. I'll say this too. I mean, the run game was pretty good during the first half, and I feel like the run game kind of flattened out towards the second half. We saw Eckler and McNichols and everybody having big runs. That's the second ranked defense in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, before that game. So you got to deal with TJ Watt. You got the Highsmith guy who's really good. They had just traded for Preston Smith. They've got some real ballers on that defensive line, and then of course they have Porter Jr. is pretty good, and Mika Fitzpatrick. So that's a very good defense. I think they just had too many mistakes to get out of their own way. We could talk about the Zacchaeus 2 bobbles on a punt return. I mean, come on, bro. Brian Mitchell ain't that far away. Go have a conversation with him. But it just kind of started out that the day just kind of started that way and kind of didn't go their way the rest of the game. But, these are the type of games that they have to learn from. This was a very evenly matched game, if you asked me. I mean, realistically, the Steelers scored 28 points, but it was on a short field for one of them. And, two bombs from Wilson. The one to Mike Williams to win the game was a prayer. Mike Williams was just acquired. They probably just told him to go, but St. Juice couldn't keep up with him. We've said it many times, and we said it last show before the trade deadline. St. Juice is not a number one corner. He cannot cover the number one wide receiver. And that's why they went out and made the trade for Lattimore. And, we just have to kind of hope that they held him out of the Steeler game, thinking that, hey, maybe we can get past the Steeler game. We'll let the hammy heal up and have you ready for the Eagles, because they're going to need him against the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles have two very good wide receivers in Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, plus a very elusive running back out of the backfield in Saquon Barkley that can catch the ball. So that'll be the test, is hopefully, and hopefully they get Robinson back as well. They got to get B-Rob and they got to get Lattimore on the field.
One interesting thing fans didn't understand was the crowd dynamics. I'd say it was about 60% Steelers fans, 40% Commanders. And everybody's going, why do Commanders fans sell their tickets? No, what happened was Steelers fans that travel real well, they bought tickets back in May when the schedule came out. And then Washington fans kind of found out after a couple wins, hit that bandwagon switch, but those tickets were already gone.
Right.
And it might be that way for the Eagles and Cowboys games too, although Cowboys fans maybe don't hold on to them. But that's what happened. And they tried to give out burgundy towels. I swear I never saw any.
You couldn't tell them you couldn't see them on TV.
Couldn't see them where I was.
And to be honest with you, Rick, I had heard that they ran out of them.
I don't know. I saw them handing them out, but Steelers fans had them too. They just handed them to whoever came through, because there isn't the deal is you got to hand them to all your paying customers.
Yeah, you can't judge based off of what jersey they're wearing.
Right. I mean, that's discrimination, and there's probably a lawsuit there. So I saw lots of Steelers fans have one. So maybe that's what happened to them too, because even sitting in the press box, I couldn't see them, and there was plenty of times to wave them on there. So, things are getting better on the crowd count. A year ago, this would have been an 80 or 90% Steelers, in the fans.
Yeah, and we had talked about it. This was going to be one of the big tests as far as the fan base. And like you said, most of the Steelers fans that live in this area bought those tickets as soon as the schedule was released. Us as Commander fans and Commanders fans that actually want to go to the game, they had no clue what Jaden Daniels was going to be 8-9 games into the season. They had no idea. This team was projected to win 6.5 games. They've already eclipsed that, and it's week 10. You know what I mean? Like, nobody expected this. Everybody expected it to be a slow burn and a slow build, and next year I even said it. Next year in the draft, we'll get our left tackle, because we'll probably be picking in the top 10, top 15. We'll get a number one left tackle. We got to get another wide receiver. We got to get a corner. A lot of our plans have changed. Obviously, we saw it with the deal for Lattimore, which we could touch on that real quick. I know your thoughts, but I want to kind of give you mine. I love the deal. Yeah, he's 27, 28 years old. They have him under control for 2 more seasons after this. He's still a top 15 cornerback in this league. Realistically, New Orleans probably would have wanted to hang on to him if it wasn't for the salary cap. They're like 60 million over next year. So they've got a lot of stuff, a lot of guys to cut, and a lot of high paying salaries that they got to get rid of. So I love the deal. I hope he can come in here and he could be that number one corner that this team has not had in a long time. And, you can use your draft capital in other areas. And let's be honest, Rick, they really didn't give up much. They gave up their third, but they retained the third that they traded with Philadelphia, which is Miami's third, which if Miami keeps losing, that pick's going to get better and better and better. So, and the sixth round pick was the Saints anyway. I had completely forgotten that we traded John Ridgeway to the New Orleans Saints for a 6th round pick. So there, have your pick back. Realistically, they traded a third, a third, a fifth, and a sixth, or a third, a sixth. I don't even remember what the whole deal was. And they ended up getting a fifth back. I mean, a third, a fourth, and a sixth, and they got a fifth back. So, for a number one corner in this league, I'd do that deal any day. So I applaud Adam Peters for that.
They basically traded Jahan Dotson from Marshawn Lattimore.
You could say that. Different pick.
I mean, Lattimore did not practice on Tuesday, wasn't on the field. So I don't see him playing against the Eagles. I think they're going to wait. Like I said, they got Lattimore for January, not for November. And while you'd like to have him out here, we would like him to play the Steelers and stop that pass. But, you're playing the long game here. So I think he'll be back against Dallas, hopefully, at that point. Because if you tweak a hammy like this, you could lose him for the rest of the season again. So I thought it was a great trade too. I didn't have any problems with it really. You need standout players in January. You need the big. Again, you can win these November games like they're doing, but you can't win them in January, especially with Benjamin St-Juste as your top corner. It will destroy you in January. You might be lucky to win one game, and that might be their ceiling. I still think they make the playoffs because they got plenty of softer games they can win. Even if they lose to Philly, I kind of figured they might go 0-2 this week. And that just means you're going to be a wild card. I'm not sure they're going to be a division champion. But
I know, and Philly's already one game up on us.
Yeah, I mean, you win this one, you're back in it and say, I'll see you again. But I always thought they'd have to go 2-0 against Philly to win the division. And that's tough. Philly's, like I always say every year, Philly's the strangest games, the strangest scores. And so I never know what's going to happen. And being a Thursday night game, who knows?
Yeah, short turnaround against a tough team too. It doesn't look good, obviously. If we still want to be, I mean, we've been lifelong Redskins Commanders fans. We know how this movie goes. We've seen it before, but and realistically, Rick, you're right. I mean, the two games against Dallas seemed appear on paper to have gotten a lot easier now that Dak is probably out for the rest of the year. That's possibly two games that you can steal that maybe you weren't guaranteed to win both of them.
But you can't have the sun in your eyes down in Dallas. That's the tough part.
I know. Jerry gonna close the windows, right?
Go put the shades up on their possessions and open the shades on the Washington's possessions.
Jerry's losing his mind, so yeah. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, they had shades up for McCarthy during his press conference because it was blinding. It just happened to be the sun happened to be there. Yeah, Jerry told me, I know where the sun is. I built this place. I told me, knock it down, build a new one. Yeah, sure. It's knocked down Jerry's world. I thought, Lord, of all the crazy things we're talking about.
Well, I'll tell you what, too. What came out today? I mean, that Hail Mary really did destroy the Bears. They scored 3 points on Sunday, and they fired their offensive coordinator today.
Yeah, who they chose over Cliff Kingsbury. So
exactly.
Yeah, have fun with that one.
It's like we talked about last week. I mean, everybody had a shot at Kingsbury. I talked about it last week. The Vegas Raiders had a deal in place and it fell through. And he said, okay, I'm going to Washington, so
they fired.
And they've already fired their offensive coordinator. So it's like, Cliff's on his revenge tour. He already beat the Cardinals. We just need to play the Raiders.
Yeah, and that's now Scott Turner and Norv Turner running there.
Norv, senior assistant.
Well, Norv used to be the Raiders head coach.
Twice, wasn't it? Wasn't he the coach twice?
Oh yeah, he there, and he was also coaching. Where was that one? The Chargers. Yeah, I mean,
head coach of the Chargers.
Norv had several spots around the league, and he's still respected as an offensive mind. So he's in a great spot to tell Scott, do this for whatever. I like Antonio Pierce since he was a former Redskins linebacker. I like the guy. I wish him well. But doing it in Vegas with that crazy ownership too, that's a hard place to make.
You don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. They're rolling out Gardner Minshew. I mean, and Aiden O'Connell, and O'Connell broke his hand, so or his thumb, so he's out. So they had to go back to Minshew. Minshew's a nice backup quarterback. He is not a starter in this league.
Yeah. Well, Washington's now going to face the Eagles, and Barkley has 991 yards rushing. Had 4 monster games so far this year. That's going to be tough. You got A.J. Brown coming off his first 100-yard game. He missed first 4 games of the season, but he's rocking and rolling now.
Yeah, I know. He's on my fantasy team. He screwed me the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, and Hurts has a 103 rating, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 5 straight 100-plus rating games. So that offense is rock and rolling. And I think it's going to be, this team just seems a little tired to me. Because it's funny. I heard Quinn say today, he goes, we played 15, 16 games. And somebody goes, well, he said that. I love that he said this. He goes, oh, I'm counting preseason games because, we were there and we played. So it counts as a game. And people always say they don't count. Yes, they do, because everybody's there doing the same thing. It's just not the standings. And the one thing about college players, and I don't think this is JD, but I'm not sure yet. It used to be years ago when they played 10-game college seasons that right about now, the rookies started tailing off because they weren't used to ever playing into late November and, preps in college. But now colleges play 12 to 15 games. So they're used to playing this time of year, but still, NFL is another animal, man. It's exhausting mentally and physically. So you wonder how your rookies do. But in the recent years, I haven't noticed a rookie drop off as much. But Jaden's been talking about how he has to take care of himself more, and he's feeling okay. He says, he has a good attitude about everything on it. So I'm not too worried about that. For some reason, that came up this week about,
Well, it's because we have such a late bye. And
yeah,
this team is banged up. Let's not deny it. This team is banged up. We've seen the injury report. It's pretty bad, but I think Jaden Daniels, I think he knew going into the NFL draft for years before what it took to be an NFL starting quarterback. I feel like the kid, we've heard about the virtual reality headset and just the way that he takes care of himself. He's the first one in there in the morning. He's the last one to leave. Like, I think the kid knows what he's getting into and he knows what he has to do to keep his body going. I don't think we really have to worry about that. It's the other guys around him that have kind of, came out of nowhere. I'll say Dante Fowler as an example. I mean, the guy's got 8.5 sacks. I didn't think he'd get 8.5 sacks, or tackles, let alone 8.5 sacks. But he's resurrected his career with Quinn and Joe Witt.
yeah,
But that's a guy. That's a guy that hadn't played a lot of football over the past couple of years, or he's been a backup in Dallas. He's got hit or rotational places wherever he was. Is that a guy that's going to be able to hold up? Because right now that is your only pass rush. I feel so bad for Johnny Newton against the Steelers. They got him to jump off sides. He looked like he was about to cry. You know what, kid? Look, you're 10 games in, and you didn't even start because you were on pup. So I think we can give Newton a little bit of a pass. That kid's probably going to be pretty good for this team. So, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's the guys that have kind of unexpectedly came out of nowhere that I think we have to kind of worry about. And I would say Fowler is probably my number one, but you never know. He's trying to get his next deal. You're always playing this season to get your next deal. So, it'd be interesting to see if they can maintain that, because Rick, this defense has gone from 31st or something like that last year to, I want to say I saw they were 6th or something like that in total defense. This probably not, probably like pass rush or something like that. I don't know what their category was, but they're in the top 10 in some categories in defense. I mean, we didn't expect that. We didn't expect that going into this season. So, and that's how I was talking to some guys about it at work today. We weren't expected to win 7 games. We've already won 7 games. Like, we're free rolling, baby. Lost to an AFC team that is a division leader. I'm not too worried about it. I would like to get this game against the Eagles, though.
yeah. You always want to beat the Eagles. You get tired of listening to the mouths of all that. It's funny. I take pictures of fans before the home games. I'm like up on a crosswalk shooting down into the crowd as they come in. I call it my concourse crazies. And there were so many couples that, one of them wore Steelers gear, the other wore Commanders gear. Or in the past years, it was Giants and all that. Mixed marriages, that kind of thing. But
I'm in one. No, it's with hockey, but I'm in one.
It's just kind of funny. But how many are, if you married an Eagles fan, I don't know. My wife doesn't really care about football, but she would root for the Commanders if need be. But I thought, if I was married to a woman who's an Eagles fan, like my cousin is, she's a great gal, but if you're sitting there yelling at the TV against my team, ooh, I'd have a hard time listening to that.
Well, if you married your cousin, we'd be doing the show in West Virginia.
Well,
But besides that, no, that was the thing. I mean, my wife is a Orioles fan. I'm a Nationals fan. I'm a Penguins fan. She likes the Capitals. But we are together when it comes to Washington football. We are definitely, I don't know. I definitely could never date a Dallas fan. I'll tell you that.
yeah, it's different in the other sports because they play so much that these games, baseball is just a couple games. Football is different. But man, if I had married to a woman who was just a Cowboys or Eagles fan yelling all the time, I don't know if that would make it. I've been married almost 44 years. So I came home the other night and my wife has the game replay on. And I'm like, what home did I walk into? Yeah. Yeah. But my grandson wanted to see some of it, So I was like, all right. She goes, can you stand go over. I thought, oh my God, I've just spent 12 hours dealing with football. You want to talk about it? No, no. But I had to go over. He goes, well, they're still winning. How did they lose this game? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Let's fast forward to
Fast
220.
forward a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, you got to
Is
play.
is your oldest grandson starting to understand what you do for a living?
A little bit,
Okay.
but not a whole lot. They know I go to a football game. So I want to go to the football game. I'm like, that's not quite how this works.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
They did honor my friend John Kahn for his 500th uh,
I
game.
saw that. That was very nice of them.
Yeah. This ownership is not treating us like dogs. I kind of like that about them.
Well, let me ask you this, since I know we got a little bit of time left before we get out of here. Has there been a misstep with this new ownership group that you can tell?
Uh, Gosh, I'm trying to think what it was. There was something that happened recently, and I was like, but it wasn't a big deal.
Was it
Uh,
the little flag? I know you got really mad about the little flag.
the flag, I got on them, and you know what? They stopped it. I'm amazed they care about what I think, but they did the big flag, and the big flag, I always tape it now and put it. If you look closely, somebody fell about one halfway across the field and went under the flag, and we never saw them again. So, I don't know what happened to them. I guess
It just became part of Northwest Field.
I guess because they were gone, man. I think a second person fell too. I have to look at it again. But yeah, the flag thing, I was like, if you already own flag and it's in the stadium, then what are we talking about? The big flag's awesome. And it's the nation, as I told them, it's the nation. This is the nation's capital. This is the world capital. Be number one with things. Don't be number two.
Well, and if
So
they didn't break out the big flag the day before Veterans Day, we would have had a problem.
yeah, and they had a pretty nice halftime ceremony they had the Vietnam War clips on the Jumbotron of protests and war stuff. I thought, my God, I have never seen that before. This is the team that didn't tell fans that Pearl Harbor had been bombed during the game because they didn't want them leaving. They wanted them to stay and eat hot dogs. I mean, that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying they would do in 1941, they announced to the crowd where Admiral so-and-so report to his office. And this is going on the whole game. And people kind of figure something's up listening to this, but Marshall would not tell the crowd that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. So stay and eat. So when the game was over, just as a side note, for people who don't know this, Sammy Ball, who's the quarterback, they're so upset about Pearl Harbor being bombed that a bunch of the Redskins players led by Ball walked to the Japanese embassy about a mile or two away. And they were going to kill the staff. They were going there to kill the staff. And the cops beat them to it. And they said, listen, we got to trade these people for our staff in Japan, which they did about a year later. You can't kill them. We need them to trade. So, but otherwise, Sammy Ball and those guys were going to kill the Japanese staff. And they had to send the cops down to the tidal basin to protect the cherry blossom trees because they were afraid.
Wow.
Yeah, that stuff like that really did happen.
That's insane.
Yeah. So they're.
But see, that's the thing, Rick. We've been, me more as a fan. I know you've covered the team and to a different level, you are sort of a fan of this team. But just I feel like we have this battered wife syndrome so much that after what Dan Snyder did, it's just so nice to see an organization do little things like that. Like, hey, let's honor a guy that has covered this team his entire life, a guy that's on ESPN and has been in the Post and everywhere else, a guy that is very respected in this area as someone who has covered the team. I mean, it's just the little things like that. And I hope to God they shipped that wire mannequin back to Macy's that they called a statue. I really am impressed with the way, that Harrison Company has treated this team since taking over. And I understand he was a fan and I understand he grew up in this area, and same with Mark Ein and the other guy, Mitch Rales. I know they've lived here, they've worked here, they've, their homes are here. So they're all fans of this team, but it's such a breath of fresh air. And all the success that we're having, I just feel like, they saged the entire stadium, and all of Dan Snyder's discrepancies are out the window. It's just so nice to finally see.
Even LeVar Arrington came back for this game, and he swore he'd never do that.
Wow.
I would have asked him, but LeVar blocked me on Twitter, so I have no idea. I have no idea why he did that
You
either.
know, and that's a good one. And also Schlereth. Mark Schlereth coming back is a big deal too, because when he left the Redskins and went to Denver and won Super Bowls with Shanahan and was on ESPN for all those years, it was, well, when Mike Shanahan and the Denver Broncos and when I played for the Denver Broncos and this, and wanted nothing to do with his Redskins legacy, I guess you could call it. For him to come back and comment and talk about how this team is and it's so nice to be back and blah blah blah, for him to do that, that's a big deal along with Arrington.
You remember Schlereth's nickname?
Stink.
Yeah, Stinky. Yeah. He's lost so much weight. When I ran into him one day, I didn't recognize who it was.
I know.
Yeah, that does happen with guys. I mean, Butts lost a ton of weight. There was a guy named Derek Smith. I flat out didn't know who he was. He was the lineman, not the linebacker. You do see that occasionally. They either get big.
Look at guys, and I know Brian Mitchell's different. Brian stayed; he's been around, but Brian was so hurt when Snyder traded him.
Yeah,
and he went to the Eagles and eventually to the Giants. You know, but even for Brian to just be as involved as he is now, I mean, it's so nice that and they really are. They're merging the past with the present. I mean, I know it's two different names and you know the uniform has changed and the logo on the helmet's different, but they're all still burgundy and gold at heart, and it's really nice to see.
yeah. It's all coming together. This is why I stayed for a while because I was going to retire 2 years ago, and then Dan Snyder said he was quitting selling the team. And I thought, oh wait a minute, I'm not going to, because I was just tired.
Yeah.
I mean, unending crap. And then last year, they lost the last 8, and you're like, oh my god. I thought I'll go another year and just see what happens. And
There's a trend that I'm seeing a lot on social media, and it's a picture of a current day picture of a fan wearing Commanders gear or being at the stadium and rooting for their team, and it says, "Oh, I'm being called a bandwagon fan," and then you scroll over to the next photo, and it's like, no, I'm not a bandwagon fan, but this little boy here got made fun of for rooting for a losing franchise that, naming off all the discrepancies that Dan Snyder had. And it's really nice it's nice that you can walk up to somebody and say, oh yeah, I root for the Commanders.
well, in the old days, and I'm talking 70s and 80s especially, it was the one thing that you could talk about in this town together.
Yeah.
70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. There was a lot of craziness going on in DC on so many levels about Vietnam War and all these things that happened. And yet this was the one solidifying thing. When the Senators left in 62 and the basketball and hockey hadn't come here yet, this was it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing. And they weren't great in the 60s, but they were interesting, because they could score a lot. And then Lombardi came and then Allen came and everything. This became the joint crossover. And I've seen that happen now finally again. It took forever, but it's something that everybody around town can talk about again. And with the election dividing everybody so much, it's nice to say, okay, well, let's talk about the Commanders instead. And notice the more they win, the less people say the word Redskins. But some people are trying to keep saying, oh, Donald Trump can have an executive order and rename them Redskins. No, he can't.
No, he can't.
No, it'd be like me saying, Matt, your name now is Jones. You can't rename a private business, executive order. Sorry, just can't.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, to kind of piggyback off of what you said, you look at video clips of the 80s from RFK, there was still a lot of racial divide in this area, I mean, there was and you had such a melting pot in that stadium just hugging and loving on one another because the Redskins were going to the Super Bowl for the third time. It's like, it's definitely a uniting factor in this world, well, in this area, when there's so much that is put out there to divide us. It's and then look, the Commanders being good is not a bad thing, That's what we're trying to say, I guess.
I mean, the refs haven't got the memo to quit screwing the team.
Yeah, I did send that tweet. I will say, I had to say, dear NFL, Dan Snyder does not own this team anymore. You can stop screwing us. Zach Ertz got the first down. Fight your mother. He got the first down. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that one. When I came home and watched it on the TV replay differently than what I see at the stadium, I was like, oh, definitely. I thought it was close until I saw the TV replays.
Yeah.
And oh, hell yeah, he was close.
They spotted where his feet were.
And it's funny that I know the team talks to the league on Monday about it, as they do often about controversial plays. And nobody asked them today. So did the league say, sorry, you lost, our fault? But I didn't hear any answer about any of that. So, which means they probably were right, and you don't want to get fined by the league for talking about it.
Exactly.
And the league will just say, yeah, we screwed that one. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll have a conversation with the crew.
Yeah, next time be better. We'll give you that first down next time.
Yeah, exactly.
And in games that sometimes happens. But late in the game, just like the one a couple of years ago where that pass interference call went against them, it cost them a playoff against the Giants.
Yep.
2 years ago. It does happen. Wow, I remember something from a couple of years ago.
Hey, to be fair, as we get ready to go, I had to remind Rick his name was AJ Brown. He wanted to call him AJ Johnson.
I wrote it down, but I didn't say it. I do it all the time. I know too many people over the years. They all just
your all-time best though is Morgan Moses, aka Moses Morgan.
Don't put that in my head because I'll screw it up again. I kept thinking it can't be last name Moses because Moses like people whoever. Moses didn't know where he was going. I asked somebody recently, they said, if Moses had walked across straight line to it, he'd have been there in about 10 days. It took him 40 years. That dude needed a GPS. Yeah, whatever.
I think Morgan Moses is either with the Jets or the Ravens still.
I don't know where he is. I don't want to even think about it because I'll just screw it up. Yeah, it happens. You get old, names go, man. I'm still.
That's a good Twitter account for anybody that listens to this show. Change your Twitter name to Moses Morgan.
Oh God! Don't start, man. I'll never get out of that one. Yeah, Matt just thinks that's fun. That's not one of the worst ones. Stanley Richard, man, that one definitely got me at times too.
What, you want to call him Richard Stanley?
Yeah, I did. I even wrote it one time.
Oh boy!
Nobody on the desk caught it. So you got to have two different names. Have a real last name, not a first name for the second name. That doesn't work.
I hear you.
All right, that's how it goes.
That's how it goes, and that's how this show goes. Because I've run out of steam.
I'm Snyder Richard.
You're Snyder Richard. Cones Matt.
That's how this works. All right. So good luck on Thursday. We'll be back next week.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent with your hosts, Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.